so many of these conditions that we suffer from chronically as humans are fixable if we just eat food for humans. This is wild to me that the Western medical system is not doing this.
What should be the role of Make America Healthy Again? What should be the role of government in facing up to big food, big agriculture, and, you know, I guess big pharma as well, of course, but like, if we lived, like, just you explaining to me as an individual, well, this is what you should feed your children, I'm immediately thinking, don't give your children anything other than organic whole food. And we've thankfully got a really good water filter in our house already for even the shower water and the drinking water. Probably there's got to be some supplementation. If that's what, you know, you can do that as an individual and we can do that as a family, and by God I will. But what does that tell us about our culture, where what's been normalized is junk food and food dyes and preservatives and pesticides in the food chain? Aren't we, like, ultimately poisoning and toxifying ourselves at beyond an industrial level, almost at a universal level?
Absolutely, we are. And it sounds hyperbolic when we say it, or it sounds inflammatory, but it's really, I think it's really true. I think that, yeah, I think I've begun to see it like this, Russell. I've begun to see it as like there are foods that are for humans and there are foods that are not for humans. And if you eat food for humans, which I would define as single ingredient foods, so meat and plants, right? Single ingredient foods, milk, eggs, fish, chicken, you know, Brussels sprouts, whatever, potatoes. These are single ingredient foods, or foods with labels that your great grandmother would recognize everything on the label. That's sort of just my working framework for food for humans. If you do that, and, you know, based on our previous part of the conversation, this is important to share with your audience. Like, I'm not trying to take away things from people or make it impossible. So the food for humans framework is quite broad, but I want people to understand this. I strongly believe, and this is something that I am so passionate about at this moment in my life and my career. And I think this is in line with the Maha movement. The Western medical system will not tell you this, but I believe that if you eat food for humans, you can correct or reverse the majority of chronic illness that we suffer from as humans today. And it's as simple as that. I mean, I'm writing a book about this now, and I want to get that message out there because as a traditionally trained medical doctor, I have an MD. That was never taught to me in medical school, that so many of the chronic health conditions that we suffer from autoimmune conditions like multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, Sjogren's, autoimmune thyroid conditions. I had eczema. Some people have skin conditions like psoriasis. Autoimmune conditions are rampant. Chronic illnesses like obesity, diabetes, atherosclerosis. So many of these conditions that we suffer from chronically as humans are fixable if we just eat food for humans. And so this is wild to me that the Western medical system is not doing this. And I think this is exactly the intersection of the government and Maha in this problem, is that, hey, look, if you're making it okay, or you're not at least telling people, hey, if you eat food that is not for humans, which is this, you know, this myriad of ultra processed foods, you are going to be sick. It's as simple as that.
When it comes to me and my wife and my 3 children, whole foods, organic, minimum amount of chemical intervention is what you would suggest. Avoid sucrose, avoid processed. And if that's true, and I know that it is, I can see actually just from looking at you, 1, that you're extremely healthy, and 2, that you're telling the truth. If that's true, what does that sort of suggest? Does it sort of suggest that we are sort of designed to be in total harmony with nature, and that our attempts to counterfeit, manipulate, control, synthesize are, if not demonic, because it's such a loaded word, certainly bad for us, and maybe bad beyond that, that once we have this knowledge base, that we don't act on it. So is it basically eat natural food? Is that essentially the message for me and my family and for our audience today?
Eat food for humans. I would say eat food for humans, you know, and like we said, you know, that's single ingredient foods with labels your great grandmother would recognize. Eat food for humans. And that's the first step, but that's a huge step. That's a step function change. You know, you do that and watch what happens. And I know that your health has improved radically. I mean, your physique looks amazing now.
Does it?
And yeah, it's incredible, dude. That's incredible. It's incredible. And I mean, I didn't see your abs when you were a vegan or vegetarian, but like, this is amazing. And I just want people to understand that so much of what we are suffering from as humans is fixable by simply going back to eating food for humans. So eating like humans and living like a human, which, and living like a human is more obvious, but we could, mention like go outside, get sunlight in your eyes, be careful of, your screens and touch the earth with your bare feet every once in a while and play with your children outdoors. Live like a human, have community, but then eat like a human. And that gets so complicated. But you're a great testament to the fact that meat, animal foods are at the center of every human diet if you want to thrive. And so that's just such an important thing for people to understand. Like you said, documentaries have convinced many of us otherwise. And I think that's just tragic because so many people have had their health suffer or had their health decline when they eliminate meat. Oftentimes with the best intentions, they reclaim their health when they reincorporate meat. And to me, that's a huge victory. So yeah, it doesn't need to be overly complex. Eat food for humans, and make sure that animal foods are at the center of your diet. They don't have to be all of your diet. If you want to eat rice or you want to eat sourdough bread or you want to eat potatoes, great. But just, you want to eat salad, fantastic. Don't eat seed oils. That's not food for humans. Your great grandmother wouldn't recognize that. Don't eat processed sugars. Those are really problematic for the gut flora. But most other things work for many people. Like if you just eat animal foods and unprocessed plant foods, you're going to do great. And so many of the things that you're suffering from are going to be reversed. And you're going to go see your doctor and they're just going to kind of wide-eyed look at you and go, what are you doing? And you just say, I'm eating food for humans, dummy. You never told me to do this. It was the simplest thing ever.
Thanks for watching the video. Have a look at this one over here or join us Monday, Wednesday and Friday on Rumble.